Namaste. Let's sit up nice and tall in our chairs, maybe even pressing into the seat of our chairs to get our spine long. Both sit bones on the ground, feet flat on the floor, underneath our knees, chin parallel to the floor. Just tuning into our breath, breathing in through our nose, out through our nose. That 3-part breath, belly, rib cage, heart. Maybe in imagining it again as that wave coming in, rolling up, before it comes back down on the other one. We can also imagine this as a Ferris wheel, getting on and moving outward and upward before we get to the top, hoping nobody else is up there with us rocking, before we start coming back down again. 3-part breath is called Durga Pranayama in Sanskrit, the ancient language of yoga. And as we start our warm-up, we're going to inhale and lift our shoulders high to the sky, roll them forward, and then around, up and back. Exhaling as we bring them down, inhaling deeply as we bring them up. And reversing direction, just trying to get the tightness out of our neck. We're not moving our head or our hips or anything but our shoulders. And now let's imagine that we're paddling a kayak, lifting first one shoulder, rolling it forward as the opposite one rolls backward. We're not twisting at all through the midsection. This is just isolated to the shoulders so that we're trying to keep the tension out of our upper back, our neck. We'll reverse direction. And then we'll let our arms dangle at our side and just shake them out. We've got a chair with arms, we'll have to bring them out a little bit further. That's okay, doesn't matter. Now we're going to swing them back and forth. If we want to continue wiggling our hands, we can, or we can just let them rest gently. And now let's open our fingers wide as we lift, make fists as we come back so we loosen up, get some warmth and blood flowing through our fingertips. Now let's put our arms either straight out in front of us or let them rest down on our legs. We're just going to turn our thumbs toward each other and our fingertips up to the sky. Then we're going to bend at the wrist, dropping down. So it can be resting on our legs or lifted up. And then let's turn our palms up. Make fist with our hands, pull our hands in toward our shoulders. Move out again. Now we're going to bring our elbows out to either side. We're going to come into our cactus arms. And we'll do our wing and a prayer. So we're going to bring our fingers together in front. And then make fist with our hands as we open up. And again, we're going to stay in a range of motion that's comfortable. If our shoulders are tight today, we can bring our elbows further down. We can bring our elbows just a little bit together or all the way in the front, as far open into the side as we'd like. We're going to start turning our chin out toward our shoulder as we open. And then on a nice slow exhale, bring our chin back to center. Now we're going to leave our arms open. We're just going to bring our fingertips together. If we can reach our hands up overhead, that would be great. But if that's not working for us today, we can just bring our hands together in front of our chin, in front of our chest. Whatever seems to be most appropriate. Now we're going to bring our cactus arms again, elbows down or up, because we're going to work on those rotator cuff muscles, rotating our fingers down, and then bringing them back to our starting point. Again, our choice to make. Do we want the elbows lower so the shoulders don't have to work so hard? Do we want to just do a little bit of motion instead of a full half circle? Next time we bring our elbows up, we're going to think about twisting, so we're going to pulse on our hip. We're going to rotate through the belly rib cage. We're going to bring that other arm across the front of our chest over to the side, come back to center. We're working on that corkscrew motion with the lowest part of our torso. Doesn't matter how far this elbow gets over to the side. We're just concerned about staying in a comfortable range of motion as we turn from rib cage up into the shoulders last, but always starting with the hip. And the next time we turn out to the side, we're going to take our outside hand and bring it so we're holding on to this arm. We're going to bring our hips and shoulders to the front, so we're just got this twist taken away. We're sitting with shoulders over our hips, but we're working on the stretch through the shoulder by pulling this elbow tighter and tighter into the opposite shoulder. We'll bring our arms, shake them out again. Before we come back into our cactus arms again, elbows lower high, we're going to go in the twist, so it's pulse on the hip, work through the rib cage, bring that opposite elbow over toward the side. We're not the least bit concerned whether or not we get the hands or the elbows together. If we can, that would be wonderful, but we're certainly not forcing ourselves. We want to be very, very careful that we're moving slowly, but we're staying in a comfortable range of motion. Now this time as we come back, we're going to square our shoulders over our hips. We're going to take our hand and bring it to the upper arm so that we can pull that elbow a little bit closer into the shoulder. Might be pretty far out, might be all the way back. So the upper arm's resting against our chest. Then we're going to drop our hands to our side. We're going to think maybe about moving just a little bit further forward in the chair so we have plenty of room for our spine to work as we're doing in our cat and cow. We're going to push the belly back, push the rib cage back, so we're pushing that back, rounding it as much as we can into a big C before we drop our chin into chest. Now with the belly forward, rib cage forward, we pull our shoulder blades tight together as we lift our chin high. Sacral part of the spine first, and then the lumbar around the waistline. Then the thoracic around the shoulder blades before we the cervical to the neck. Always in that wave-like motion, trying to articulate each one of the vertebrae as we get rid of all of that tension in our back. Any soreness in the lower back is getting a little bit of stretching. We've got arthritis on our spine. We're bringing a fresh supply of blood and oxygen up and down our spine. Now we're going to come and sit up tall, and remembering that every time we do a forward fold, it always wants to be the belly moving down to our legs. So we tighten our abdominal muscles. We tighten the muscles in our legs. We just come forward a little bit, trying to feel the stretch through the lower back, and then sitting up tall. Coming forward a little bit more, but trying to keep our elbows in, coming down again, coming forward, and bringing our arms across so we've got our elbows on opposite knees. Let's just hang our head and shake our head yes and no. It's getting all the kinks out of our head. Maybe reaching our hands down to our thighs, pulling a little tighter. Maybe even all the way down to the floor. And then releasing our hands, we're going to sit up nice and tall. And we're going to work on all the shoulder parts again, elbows, wrist. We're going to take a deep breath in, stretch our arms high to the sky. And then as we exhale, we're going to bring our arms out to the side. Inhale, drop them down. Exhale, bring them together between our knees. Inhale, rotate the fingertips toward our heart center. Exhale, push our hands forward and start all over again. This time, if we want to lift our heels to get more work through the legs, we can. Lifting the heels as we stretch high. Dropping the heels as we bring arms to the side. Lifting the heels as we drop the hands to our side. Dropping the heels as we bring our hands together in front. Lifting fingers to heart. Dropping, stretching forward. Another time through, high to the sky, stretching spine. Out to the side. Next to our chair. Forward between our knees. In toward our heart, pushing out, stretching high to the sky. And let's drop our heels to the ground, but take this to a side bend, gently leaning out to the side and back. Could be just a little bit of a motion. If this bothers us to keep our arms lifted, we can bring our hands on our shoulders. So we're just doing a little bit of a teeter-totter move side to side. If you want to do a little bit more, we can bring our hand all the way up over the top. So we're getting the shoulder pulled away from our rib cage, getting lots of stretch on the muscles of the upper shoulder. And then coming back to center. We're going to sit up nice and tall, and we're going to do a maneuver that is going to help us a lot if we have any tension headaches. So we start with a deep breath in. As we exhale, we're going to bring our elbows even with our shoulder, with our palms facing back toward our head. We're going to inhale, push our fingers up, lift our chin up, and exhale, we're going to slowly drop our chin in toward our chest. Then we're going to ride the elbows to our side in our cactus arms before we dive into the water, rounding the back, bringing the hands together, and starting all over. Nice slow inhale as we sit as tall as we can. Exhaling, imagining we're holding a newspaper. Inhaling, pushing fingers and chin up. Exhaling, landing hands high but dropping chin to chest. Elbows out to the side, diving into the water. Another time through, sitting up tall. Bringing the newspaper up. All the way to the sky. Dropping chin into chest. Arms out to the side before we dive into the water. And then sitting up nice and tall, we're going to grow our spine as tall as we can again. We're going to work a little bit more through the legs, so we're just going to lift our knees up and down as if we were walking in place. Now we can make our choice as we do some ankle circles, whether or not we can keep the leg lifted, maybe even holding onto it, and just turning that foot around and around and around, reversing direction. Opening toes as we move toward the outside, squeezing them together on the inside. We'll switch to the opposite leg. Lifting that knee again, holding onto it if we can, but if that's not going to work, we're going to leave our toes on the floor. And we're going to pull that heel around in circles, inhaling as we move to the outside. Nice slow exhale as we come back. Now we're going to do the same thing with the knees. We can leave the toes on the floor, but if we can afford to do so and get a little bit more work on strengthening through the top of the thigh into the hip flexor, lower abs, we can hold on to that leg, and we're going to do some knee circles. Inhale, exhale. We'll switch to the opposite leg. So again, it's either holding on to the leg or just keeping it lifted if we really want to do some work, or putting toes on the floor. Breathe in as we go out, exhale as we come in. Now we're going to do joining our cat and cow that we did before with that knee lift. So as we round our back, we're going to pull our knee in toward our chest. We're going to drop our foot and sit up tall. Let's stay on the same side to make it a little bit easier. Deep breath in as we sit up tall, exhaling as we lift that knee in. Switching to the opposite side. Exhale. Inhale. Now let's sit up nice and tall and let's straighten out our legs in front of us and do that ankle flexion, pushing toes into the floor and then pulling the heels in. Just focusing on our breath. Now let's do a little bit of rotation and stretching through the inner thigh, outer thigh strengthening. Going to pick up our foot, point the toes toward the outside, slide it out. Point your toes in, slide it back. Toes out and in. Out and in. Out and in. Maybe both together, or continuing to do one side after the other. And then straightening out our legs, pressing our hands into the chair, and really pushing that spine as tall as we can get it. If we can, we might even be able to push so high into the chair that we actually get our hips off the chair, but we're not going to force ourselves to that if we don't feel that we want to do so now. Planting our feet on the floor and doing the same thing, pushing as hard as we can into the chair, seeing if we can actually lift our hips up. Now we're going to take this to a back bend. So we're not sitting hard against the back of the chair. We're seated forward a little bit. We're going to take our hands and make fists with our hands and put it on the back of our hips, or we're going to take our palms against our kidneys a little bit higher up. It's either one of the two. We can even turn sideways in the chair. What we're going to do as we do in our cow face pose, push the belly forward, push the rib cage forward, pull the shoulder blades together, lift our chin up to the sky. And we're just going to relax, let our spine come tall. Open up again into our camel, pulling the shoulder blades tight, but we're thinking first of all about belly, rib cage, heart, making space on the front of our body. Thinking as if we had a zipper by our pubic bone and pulling it up to our navel and pulling it up to our solar plexus, pushing the heart high to the sky, and then coming back again with a nice straight spine. Another time up as high as we can. And back again. And now we're going into a seated sun salute. So we're going to be moving through a bunch of the poses that we just finished. We're going to think about inhaling, stretching the arms as high as we can to the sky, then our back bend. So belly moves forward, we push the heart up toward the sky, we come back and kneel up tall. When we did our child's pose before, we did our hip hinge, coming down as low as we could, down to the floor. Inhaling, sitting up tall, pressing hands into the chair, getting our spine long. Exhaling, lifting a knee, then the other knee. Before we push our rounded back into the back of the chair, sprung as wide as we can get it. And then snow angeling the hands around so we can start all over, stretching high to the sky. Our extended mountain, our back bend, our camel pose, high to the sky. And into our fold, bringing our belly down to our legs, making sure we don't have the hands far in front of us, because if we do that, then we're putting all the weight of our shoulders and our arms under our lower back. And we're going to sit up tall, pressing into the chair, trying to lift, sitting comfortably as we lift one knee, and then the other, round our back into the back of the chair, and start all over again. Inhale. Exhale, inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale, inhale. And now sitting up tall. We're going to do a little bit of a hip walk, just rolling around from one hip to the other. Just thinking about making a circle with the outside of our hip. Now let's do that, lifting the knee as if we were going to walk. So we lift the knee and rotate that hip forward, drop the foot to the floor. And let's let some arms work with that. Just as if we were walking with a little bit of swing through the hips. And then planting both feet on the floor. remembering that we always want to do our twisting poses with hip, rib cage, heart. So we're going to spread our feet a little bit further apart, drop both knees out toward the side. We're going to put our hand next to our hip on the side. We're going to make a fist with our hand. We're going to pretend we're holding into a fire truck. And we're going to keep our gaze on that hand as we slowly bring it around over toward the side, bending at the elbow and bringing that hand up toward our shoulder, and then working back. We're going to hold to turn out to the side. We're going to think about bringing our feet closer together, coming up and lifting our heels. And then trying to push those knees over to the opposite side as the way our torso is turning, so we can get more of that twisting motion, as if we were wringing out a dish rag, trying to get rid of all the toxins in our internal organ. We can take our front ear and drop it down toward our shoulder to stretch our neck a little bit. Move with our breath up and down if we choose. Then we're going to drop our feet on the floor and do the same thing on the opposite side. So we're going to drop knees out to the side a little bit. We're going to take our other hand down to the floor, making that fist again as if we were holding onto a fire truck, keeping our gaze on that arm. As we bring it around, it's not really very much of a twist. It's mostly through the lowest part of the hip. We're not trying to get our shoulders very far around, but we keep moving and keeping our gaze on our arms, so we're turning through the neck, getting some of the tension out of the upper shoulders. Now we are going to take this to a twist. So we're going to bring our feet back towards center, maybe keeping the heels up so that we have a little bit more maneuverability, but now we're going to take this to a full twist with the pulse through the hip. We work through the rib cage. We try and turn through the shoulders now, trying not to get that back shoulder flowing forward, but pulling it as far as we can behind us. And we can think about pushing our knees in the opposite direction, maybe tightening up the muscles on the inner thighs to get them pushing over toward the opposite side. Maybe taking our other hand and pushing into the arm of the chair if we have one, or to the seat of the chair, and seeing if on our inhale we can get our spine a little bit longer. On our exhale, maybe tighten the muscles through our midsection and turning a little further to the side. And again, if we'd like to, we can drop our ear down to our front shoulder. And coming back towards center. Planting our feet flat on the floor, sitting up nice and tall. We'll just finish up with a nice massage around our head. We're going to rub our fingertips really hard together, building up heat within the palms of our hands before we place our hands over our eyes. Fingertips on our forehead, heels of our hands down, closer toward the bottom of our cheeks. Just tuning into our breath, feeling that warmth building up in the space between our hands. Now we're going to bring our wrist out to the side as we aim our fingertips together in the front. And we're going to gently push in toward our forehead and bring the hands over our brow, around the outside of our eyes, underneath our eyes, and then pull down toward our chin. And doing that a few more times. So we just get all that tightness out. And then sitting up nice and tall. Thinking again about tuning into our breath. Maybe letting our eyes close, our jaw go slack, keeping our eyes soft. Feeling the rising of the belly on our inhale, moving up to the rib cage, the heart. Not trying to control the breath in any way, recognizing that one breath may be longer or shorter than the next. One breath deeper, another breath more shallow. And just appreciating ourselves as we are at this moment. Recognizing that we got to this stage of our life through many circumstances, interacting with many people, family, friends, acquaintances, strangers. And maybe looking back on some parts of our lives that we weren't quite so satisfied with. Maybe times of sorrow, guilt. But recognizing that every choice we made at every stage in our life, we made with the best information we had possible at that moment. With our best self as we were at that time in life. And recognizing that every stone we set into that foundation of our lives mattered. Whether it were a heavy stone or a light one. Beautifully polished or dull and gray. They all work into the pattern of our life. And we appreciate them as helping to build our character, our connections to everything else in life. Being thankful for every one of those opportunities that we had. Recognizing that the breath of life at any one of those times, and this breath right now, is the only thing we're guaranteed. Appreciating the miracle of life, the miracle of breath. Slowly open our eyes as we bring our arms down to our side. Maybe shake them out again and wiggle around if we need to. Before we snow angel our hands around, high to the sky, and bring them down to heart center. Namaste. Be well.